Oh, hi! I just want to take a hot minute here before we start to thank you all for the support on my Has-Been Hotel dolls. I tried to read all the comments and reply to most of them. It really matters to me to know what you folks think, so yeah, I see you all, and I only have love for you people. So now, the doll I show you today is the 8th one in my Sailor Princess collection, and this is Princess Pluto. To make her, I picked a Cleo the Nile Monster High doll, so let's get into it. Like usual, the first step will be to cut her hair and ready her for the water bath. This will soften the vinyl and make it easy for me to remove her head from her body. So you see me prepping her along here with another doll. This Catherine the Muse going to become Charlie from Has-Been Hotel, so yes, that's coming soon. So yeah, basically I inserted a flat screwdriver in the head through the neck hole to scrape the stubbles of hair from the inside. This will free the space so I'll be able to reroot the heads later on. And I don't know for you other customizers out there, but this step for me can be so painful, and I mean, okay, I have chronic pain, so yeah, but still, I often need to take small breaks and stretch my fingers and such. Luckily, it was not Cleo who was giving me the hardest of time. I was able to empty her head fairly easily with tweezers, and then I could move on to the next step, which was cleaning. I am using heavy-duty nail polish remover that is 98% acetone, and it's really just the cheapest way for me to get almost pure acetone, as these are sold in my local dollar store. So now, let's talk hair. For her, I'll be using this fluffy deep green 100% acrylic yarn. To prepare it for the reroot, I simply separated the strands. They are big but not too big, so I can reroot them directly as is. To reroot, I use a needle whose eye was cut in an angle. I wrap the yarn around my finger, slide it in the needle, and plug. Since I want maximum length instead of folding the hair in half like most people do, I simply grab the yarn as close on as its end as possible. This is still yarn though, and it's way thicker than saran or nylon, so you do not want to plug every single hole. I do one hole on 2, sometimes 3 around the perimeter of the head. This is usually where you want the most hair, that and the part line. I like working in sections to keep the fibers organized, which usually saves me trouble later on. And with big fluffy yarn like the one I'm using here, I go with my flat iron before brushing it, just to make sure I can keep as much length as possible. When flat ironing, I take my time. With this kind of hair, you want to be a bit gentle to not pull too much fibers out. The aim is to keep it as long as possible after all, and sadly, yarn has its limits. It's worth the effort though, as I feel like the more you iron it, the shinier it gets. We'll have to brush it eventually, yes, but way less than we would if we had used a less fluffy yarn. So these are my sections. I have done the perimeter, and an extra row at the front for the fringe, and the back for length. I have kept the top bare because I have enough hair around the perimeter to cover the top. She has that pulled into a small bun, so yeah, I find it efficient to plan a yarn reroot for a specific hairstyle, so that's how I roll. Each section is tied separately to help me with styling later on, and now I can safely put her into the head burrito using a scrap piece of fabric. This will protect her hair from the products I will be using on her face. Don't worry about a tiny section of hair showing. If there's products that cakes on there, you can carefully scratch it off with your nails or carefully with an artist knife. Happens all the time to me. The important thing is to have access to the whole face. Knowing that I was satisfied with the hair, I used that moment to put glue in the head since I was heading to bed. I don't mind doing it with the needles inside because I know Elmer's glue won't cement them in place, but it would be better to do it before the burrito stage if you use anything stronger. Then, moving on to the face-up. The doll's face was primed with 2 coats of sealant. I used Mr. Super Clear UV Flat. All materials are listed in the description box below. After priming her, I sketched the eyes with a pencil similar to her skin color and I started the blushing. On the first two layers, I mainly focus on contouring and shading, a bit like we would do with a face full of makeup. As you can see, it starts pretty subtle. It's by layering that you will layer opacity. The sealant also gives you a better texture the more you add on, so it's really about taking small steps and being patient. MSC is really finicky to work with and also requires users to take safety measures as it is really toxic. But the payoff is definitely water trouble if you want my opinion, and this is why it's hailed as the magic ingredient in doll repaint. I love adding a lot of pink in my blushings, but with a deeper skin tone like Cleo's, I need colors that are a bit deeper. I love it though, I think it marries really well with the hair color and it matches Sarah Pluto's skin tone to a T. I'm really happy I can work with the doll's original complexion. I've been painting a lot of bodies recently and I'd rather avoid it if I can. That here, my friends, is my BFF. It's a pastel pencil. I use it to add highlights and start building on whites as early as I can. It's all about layering after all. You see here, after a fresh coat of sealant, some pigments have toned down. Worry not though, it's all going according to plan. Just don't forget to spray thin coats when you go to add sealant, and make sure to wait at least 20 minutes for the MSC to fully dry before resuming your work. Patience is key, and since I'm a very impatient person, I understand the pain, but again, it's worth it. I just cycle projects sometimes, to help pass the time. That and ADHD. I always need to have something ongoing. I'm pretty sure a lot of you can relate to that. So yes, after I'm happy with the pastel work, I get my watercolor pencils out and I start going in for the details. The sealant has layered enough at this stage to let me draw as if the vinyl had the texture of paper. I always start with more mellow pigments and slowly work my way toward more, or sure, I'd say more unforgiving colors. It's easier to erase brown than black after all, and it also helps me make sure everything is well blended. Be careful though, keeping your pencil sharps will help you keep those details fine and precise even if you layer them on. The last thing you want after all is for everything to become way too thick. And then, well, it becomes a dancing game of back and forth all around the face, layering sealant when you feel the pigment stop building and going in until you're happy with the result. You can also spray MSC to save your progress, making sure that what's under won't budge. I personally also like to sketch in eyebrows with pastel first, as I can use a kneading eraser to carve and shape them to just the way I want them to be. I want all my solar princesses to look a bit sad or innocent, so that's the vibe I'm going for here. Oh, and that's the return of the unruly hair strands. Hi, I'm still Ginger. Sorry about that. And yes, I try to keep the black for the very end, and I usually also draw the eyelashes then. After I'm happy with the pencil work, I finish it up with paint. I use watercolors, but you could also use gouache or acrylics. I used to do it with acrylics actually, but I find that the other two types of paints are more forgiving, and they can be easily wiped away with water if mistakes are made. I mainly use the paint to build texture and define the finer details. It really brings the whole thing together in my opinion. Seems like I somewhat forgot what the camera was, but here, I mixed a tiny bit of mica powders with water and a bit of Mod Podge to give Pluto's eyeshadow some shine. And then I dusted a ton of the loose thing on her face. I would do the same with the body later on. At the end, I protected my work with 3 layers of sealant to finish it off, and I glossed her lips. She was now ready for me to go on the next stage of this project. The next stage was hair, and this time I'm putting it in its final style. It's really hard for me to film it with my current setup, but basically I flat iron it and then formed her bun. I had to cut the bangs too, for which I used an eyebrow razor because scissors would be a bit too blunt. Then I glued small gems to act as earrings. Okay, so clothing, the art part. For the dress, I want to take inspiration by one absolutely gorgeous illustration made by Sailor Moon's creator Takeuchi Naoko. Pluto, well, Setsuna is the oldest of the group, and she is more of a woman than a teenager, so I'm thinking about giving her a sexy edge. I was also a bit bummed to realize that the outer Senshi's dresses were all very similar, so I want to try and make them all very different. So here I'm just testing the fit with pins, wondering how I can attach the gathered lace, absolutely overlooking important things like fabric thickness, because of course, I could not do everything easily, am I right? I ended up deciding to do a removable lace skirt for her, and I attached an elastic band around her waist. I also ended up adding another piece between her legs to make sure it would not hike up too high. So it does not look too bad under the dress, and it makes her versatile, so I think it's time to quote Bob Ross and call my mistake a happy accident. Everything is still well under the sun. I want to decorate the dress with chains and jewels, so I'm gathering what I have and I test things out. I'm really happy with it so far, and I like the fact that the straps can be put straight or down the shoulders. Again, she's versatile. The necklace also can rotate. Though I ended up not keeping the belt. It felt too punk out from the noughties. I replaced it with roses and a simple dangling chain. I was really feeling the sexy vibe, so she got a small lace garter. Now for her shoes. I picked those plain ones that I got from Lady Dynamite Creates. She 3D prints those and you can find them on her Etsy. I decided to go simple and painted them and then added some glossy varnish. The sculpt on them is divine, and I say that they are sleek and very effective. The last touch is, of course, the gloves. They all have these in the collection. I was lucky. I previously swapped Cleo's hands with an Ever After High set because I needed hers for another project. They are already black, so there's no need to paint them. I simply stitched some black lace around the wrists. And with that done, that's it. That's all I need for this doll. I only need to put her together actually and show you the end result, and boy, I must say, I was not sure when I started her, but she captured my heart since, so let's all meet Princess Pluto. So, what you think of her? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to read what you have on your mind. Next repaint will be Charlie from Has Been Hotel in a week or two, so stay tuned folks. In the meantime though, stay safe.